Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. And today I have a great guest for you named Courtnie Nichols. Before we get into the episode, I wanted to share a new offer that I have for all of you, and this is actually a free offer. So I have had a podcast launch checklist since probably about 3 years ago when I first started to create a lot of freebies to help people with their podcasts. And I have not updated it since then. But I just decided to revamp it, and it is literally better than ever before. And I cannot wait for you to go download this, because not only is the step-by-step of what you need to know to start a podcast, it's step-by-step of what you need to do to start a podcast. So the reason that I decided to revamp this is because I get so many questions of people saying, what's the first step I need to do to start a podcast? What's the first action I need to take? And as you know, if you've listened to this podcast before, I am all about action steps. And so in this checklist, it is a Google Sheet that literally you can check off as you go. And so everything you need to know is there. I have been in business for a while, so I also included a lot of resources that I've created of extra things to look at if you get hung up on one part of starting a podcast. You can find this in my show notes, or you can go to my website, espressopodcastproduction.com/checklist. And you can download it there. You just put in your email and immediately it will be sent to you, which is so nice. And so if you've ever thought of starting a podcast and you're not sure of what the first step to take is, definitely this is for you. If you're ready to start your podcast, this is for you. Or if you've never really thought about it, but you're like, I wonder what I should do, or I wonder if this is even down the line for me, I would just encourage you to go download it, check it out. You can have it in your back pocket, and it's free to download. And so really it's a win-win situation for you. Let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Courtnie Nichols, and she is a highly accomplished entrepreneur and travel industry expert. She is the founder of TravelBash, a destinating wedding concierge, and the CEO of TRVLB, a luxury travel design studio that specializes in creating bespoke travel experiences for discerning clients. Additionally, Courtnie serves as an advisor and consultant to various travel brands, helping them craft tourism marketing strategies that resonate with modern cultural travelers. I absolutely love this episode because it's full of action steps on how to actually grow your business, but we also talk about travel, which is a huge passion of mine. So in this episode, we dive into how she created a plan to quit her job. Before just jumping into the deep end, she actually did create a plan, so we talk about that. And then we also talk about how she grows her business through organic reach, which I love organic reach. That's how I grow my business as well. But Courtnie's doing this on a whole bigger scale. She's been in business since 2017, so she really does have this down to a science. So she really uses blogging and Pinterest to get organic leads and organic reach. And by doing this, she becomes a thought expert. And so we talk about how she creates content with her blogs. She talks about how to create the right content to get in front of the right people, and also how she creates content that people want to read. So if you look up something like destination wedding etiquette, she is literally the second person that will pop up. And I know that's what we all want for our businesses, because that is where you can get a lot of organic leads from. So she tells us how she does that. She also calls herself a travel industry disruptor, which I absolutely love, and how she helps people who are just starting travel agencies really get started and make money from doing what they love. So there's tons of resources and books that Courtnie recommends in the show notes, along with her links and mine. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us. I'd love to chat with you. So let's get right into this episode with Courtnie. Hey Courtnie, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I love talking about travel. Travel is one of my favorite things. Like, if I had all the money in the world, I would be traveling full time. And so I'm really excited just to talk about how you started your business, all about travel, and how you got here. So, if you wanted to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, I would love to learn more.
Yes. Okay. So, like she said, I'm Courtnie Nichols, and I am based in a small town in Southwest Virginia. I started my business I'm on lucky number 7 at this point. I started my business in 2017. And at the time, I was working a full time job. I always say before I began this journey into full time entrepreneurship, I was a major gift fundraiser. So, I asked wealthy people for lots of money and at the university level. And so from there, I started traveling and I started thinking about, okay, what does life look like outside of my day job? I'm currently married to a college basketball coach. So at the time, I had moved 6 times in 7 years. And so I have 2 degrees. I went to school and I'm like, okay, clearly, something is not right. I was like, I need to be able to get a job. If he tells me that we're moving to Antarctica, that there would be something that I can do on my own that produces the income that I would like to have for the lifestyle I want to live. And it wouldn't stop anything. So a little bit about me, obviously, is I love travel. I'm a hotel snob. I love little miniature schnauzers. We used to have one, passed away from cancer in 2019, my little baby Zoe. Enjoy anything like self-improvement, reading books, that type of thing. I was a Division 1 athlete, 2 sports, basketball and volleyball. I've been the same height since 8th grade. I'm 6 feet 2 inches. So
Oh my
I know
gosh.
people don't usually come on here and say those little quirky things, so I thought I would throw it in there. Yes, little tidbits about me. So yeah, that's Courtney
Very
Nichols.
cool. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I love those little fun facts. And I always think it's so interesting to really learn more about the person on the other side of the screen. Like, I've met some of my clients in person, and the person I met on the screen is so different than the person I have in my head. But that's just the online world for you. So, I
Mhm.
really love how you started your business because you wanted that freedom. And I know a lot of people get into traveling because they want that freedom. And so you help travel advisors, and we'll get more into that. But I really want to learn more about your journey from employee to boss. So, once you decided you wanted more of that freedom, and
Yeah.
if your husband's job took you anywhere, what steps did you take to really get to where you are now?
So I really said, like, I sat down and I decided I was going to give myself a year. So my husband thinks that I just tell people to quit their job. I am not advocating for you to quit your job. Anybody who's listening, Courtney did not tell you to do that. And then I'll say, quit your job. But basically, I came up with a game plan. Okay, I'm going to give myself a year. I started this just like many people, a side hustle. I was planning trips for friends, family, and then that kind of grew. And I was like, okay, wonder if I can replace my income. So then days off, when I got off of work, I'd work on my business. I started blogging, talking about travel, talking about destination weddings. I had a destination wedding. I was at the age where a lot of my friends were getting married. So I was just sharing that experience, putting content out there. And when I got clients, I would book their trips and that type of thing. So then I started looking at, okay, how much money would I need to quit and just have the bills paid? Not like surplus, living my best life, like extra, but just to, for it to make sense. So then
Mhm.
I spoke with my husband, like, okay, we're gonna act like my salary no longer exists in this household. And so I started putting money away to give me a better kind of runway to
Yeah.
actually fully launch my business. So, like, as a step, I would always say, again, don't just quit, kind of start brainstorming, whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever makes sense for you, your family, yourself, however your household runs. And then start thinking about ways that you can supplement your day-to-day job income to then put into your business. So I always like to fully fund, because people underestimate how much money it takes to actually start a business. And that doesn't
Yeah.
mean, you spend all the money on the bells and whistles and get everything, but just to really be functioning, getting your website, getting your branding, investing in some coaching. If you were doing a podcast, like the equipment, like, you just don't understand. And then you're at first like, oh my goodness, I've spent all this money. And it really, like, that's when you start looking at like a business is here to make money. And if not, I've just invested into expensive hobby, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I always tell people, hey, you want to give yourself a runway, start putting some savings away, looking at your situation, that first year was great for me to explore while I was still working, because then it let me fine tune who I wanted to serve. So obviously when you first start, you're like, oh yeah, I'll do this, this, and this. Again, I started as a travel advisor and I focused on a little bit of everything. And slowly but surely, I was like, that is not what I want to do. So then it gave me time to fine tune of like, here's who I'm speaking to. Here's my ideal client. What are people come to me for? You know, like, what do I actually want to be known for, and what do I want to put out there? So then start thinking about that and then start writing. I always say content is key. And there's 4 ways to get clients. And people are always like, what? Like 4 ways. I'm like, you're going to buy them through ads. You're either
Mhm.
going to borrow by using someone else's platform. It's going to be
Yeah.
referral based, which a lot of times when you start your business, that's usually people number one or their go to. And that's kind of the easiest. And then 4 is the content, like whether that is blog writing, whether that's through social, YouTube, but you need to get out there in the world. I think there's like almost 8 billion people out there. So my first couple of clients outside of referrals, even to this day, are people I do not know. It's because they said that they read a blog of mine or Pinterest. That's my second driver for my business. And now that I'm doing more speaking and consulting with advisors, they're seeing me out at different events and networking. But it was really through the content that I produced online is what garnered and kind of pushed my business forward. So I think
Mm.
I gave you a few different steps. Again, don't quit, create a plan. You know, I think everybody says create a plan, but like, again, start thinking about how much money you need, put that aside, and then fine tune who your audience is and where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you do say that it does take time because it absolutely does. It's not like you're going to start your business and have all these clients coming to you. I'm sure that the content that you're creating now, or, when did you start your business? What year was
In
it?
2017, and I went full time in
Wow.
June of 2018. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it's been definitely a while. So I'm sure the content that you created back then is so different than what you create now, but you couldn't create now without that whole process of what you used to create then.
Exactly. I sound different. It was so funny. One of my team members like, Courtney, I just found an old YouTube webinar, and she was like, whoa, it's like night and day. I was like, hey, I was just, your first one, you're just putting stuff out and she's like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. We're in the point now where we're going back and updating those older blogs and,
Mhm.
fine tuning and that type of thing. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
that's also the beauty of being able to stay in business for so long and have some sort of long-term vision that
Mhm.
one day, whenever someone comes to me to start a podcast, I'm like, your first episodes are not going to be your favorite ones. And that's totally okay
Yeah.
because they shouldn't. If I heard this thing a couple weeks ago where if you're proud of the first thing you put out, you waited too long to actually start. And I think that
Mm.
that's so true because taking messy action and really just seeing what works and just putting yourself out there is the first step to successful entrepreneurship.
I agree. That was good. I'm like, can we get some snaps or some claps? You're bringing the gems.
Well, so you gave a lot of advice on how to actually start to grow your business. And I'm curious, at what point in your business journey were you like, okay, I have this down. Now let me help other travel agents?
That's a good question because I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, I think if you get to the point where you're like, oh, I've got this covered, you don't have it covered.
Yeah.
Like, entrepreneurship is a journey, it takes time. And marketing, a lot of it is like trial and error and
Mhm.
testing. And again, there's some strategy. So I'm not just saying throw things on the wall and see what sticks,
Yeah.
but you are kind of throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks. Like, I think that I've gathered enough knowledge of my industry to share with others, but do I have it fully figured out? I'm always saying, like, there's always a coach for a coach as a coach. Just like your travel advisor has a travel advisor has a travel advisor, if that makes sense. So, like, yes, I'm not at the level I was when I first started, but where I'm trying to go, there's still people that, can pull me up, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm sharing the tidbits and nuggets of information I wish I had when I first started so that next person doesn't have to take as long to get there. But then also, you know what I mean? Like, that's what someone's doing for me, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think there was a time, or even when I think about my business today, that I just like, oh, I got this thing figured out, well, machine. Now, there are things where I'm like, this doesn't work, or I know if I do this, I'll get this result, if that makes sense, especially knowing who my ideal clientele is and how we would like to service them. But just like I just launched on the agency side of my business for travel, we just launched these brand new curated trips, and we're really still trying to figure out like, will this work? You know, who actually is coming versus who we thought would come and that type of thing. So I think it's a learning you know, I wake up every day and I'm like, let's try this, and that. And my team's like, oh gosh, here she goes again. Yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, it just keep going with, what works and then seeing what else works. And I think that's just like
Yeah.
so much fun. How big is your team?
I have four lovely ladies on my team,
Amazing.
small but mighty. And then I have Kevin, our go-to like digital marketing slash techie in California. So yeah, we're going. I mean, I'm like, how many? Yeah, we're small but mighty. We're going strong.
Yeah,
He's
no, I
actually
love
been with me from day one. Just to like caveat going back, when I started my business, I was the only millennial I knew who did not have social media. So when I tell you like started from nothing, I didn't have a following, I didn't have a presence, a network. He actually, him and his fiance at the time, she was actually a University of Florida student where I used to fundraise. So like I was using part of my network and people I knew that when I was running this side business that were good at what they did to kind of help me. So they created my Pinterest, they did my Facebook, Instagram, all of that. So when people are like, "Oh, I don't have social media, I don't have follow," I did not either. You know, I just
Mm,
started. So he's actually been with me from the beginning of like creating my first blog post and putting it out there to what should I post on social and like what is digital marketing and all of that. So I literally
yeah.
was starting from ground zero.
No, I love that you said that because that also brings up such an important point of you can start at any point, and just because you have like 0 social media followers doesn't mean you can't start. Everyone starts at that, right? But then also,
Exactly.
if you have millions of social media followers, that really doesn't equate to sales necessarily, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of people are starting to realize, that if you have a social media following that's engaged, that's better than having a social media following that's not.
Ding, 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 ding. That's
Yeah.
the right. Yeah, that's the same thing with your email list. There are
Yeah.
people who have like 20,000 subscribers, but like maybe one or two. But then if you have 500 and they're engaged and they're
Mhm.
wanting what you want, to me, that's way better because now you're paying for people that don't want your services or too lazy to unsubscribe, and it doesn't
Right.
help you know like what it is they want. Versus when you have that small list that you can really curate, you know, your message, your content to them and what they're looking for.
Yeah. So 2 of the platforms that you said that you promote and get, clients from are blogs and then also Pinterest. And I'm really interested in hearing about both of those and how you use those and what you would recommend.
Yes. So in my industry of travel and hospitality, I'll start with Pinterest and then go back to the blogging because I think that's more applicable for everyone. But in my specific industry of travel and hospitality, Pinterest is huge. If just think about weddings or travel. Just think about when the last time you planned your trip or you're trying to get ideas or inspiration. Where do you go? And people think it's just women on there, but there are men on Pinterest as well. And Pinterest acts more like a search engine versus how Instagram, Facebook. So Instagram and Facebook want you to stay on their platform. So they actually penalize you for leaving. Pinterest is the one platform that actually allows you, like they want you to click off their site to get information. So like they've done studies. Pinterest actually, the people on Pinterest searching are more primed to buy than the people scrolling your Facebook page or your Instagram. I know TikTok's a big one that's coming up, but Pinterest is more like the people that are on Pinterest that are looking for things are more primed to buy. They're actually saving things. They're pinning, you know, they're going to your website, they're consuming the content. So that really has helped me, which circles back to the blogs, the content, because I'm putting out blog content, videos, you know, anything you can think of in all things wedding or all things travel that you're like, ooh, and it's aesthetically pleasing. So then people are like, ooh, we love this. And so right now I'm sitting at almost 90% Google organic search. That's how people are finding me.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Still to this day, no ads are being run, not even on Pinterest. I've tested them. And so before I was thinking, oh my goodness, my digital market, like SEO is amazing and Pinterest is great. I'm going to just do some ads and it's like lighting a flame. Not so much. It didn't do well. I
Oh,
mean, it
really?
didn't do what I thought it would do. And we've tried it, tested on Pinterest a few different times for ads, and even with Google ads, but I've just been doing really well at, I always say, answering the question better than anyone else. I don't know if you've heard of this book, but I would like to give everyone on this podcast something to think about. You need to get this book. It's called They Ask, You Answer. Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so have you heard of Story Brand with Donald Miller?
Yes.
Okay, so they ask, I think is it Marcus Sheridan? They ask, you answer. So basically, they saw this guy who started a business, and literally he just created content like lit the flame, and basically answered any question pertaining to his pool business, if that makes sense. And
Okay.
so they give you the framework in the book of what are the topics that people most request or like when they search. Usually it's around cost. How many times have we Googled something about comparisons? Like, is this better than this? Or like, who all does this? Like, so they give you kind of like the top big content pillars, and then you're creating content around those content pillars. And it goes back to what people are searching. So even before I had read this book or knew anything about it, myself and my team were already doing. And then I'm like, there's a book that does it. And then so once we got really specific with the principles, we just went like on steroids. So again, going back, I planned my destination wedding. So then I started thinking about what are all the questions I have when I plan the destination wedding. So I'm like, where are the best locations? Where in Mexico? Like, should I travel with my dress? Is it safe? What are the legal requirements? So anything and everything you could think of something within your business that someone would Google or ask, you write content on it. So then your blog, your content is coming up on basically everything. I know now Google doesn't have like a first page per se because now it's like an endless scroll. But like you
Mhm.
could pull up destination wedding cost, TravelBash is going to come up. You could put destination wedding etiquette. I'm like the third one down, and you got to think I'm a small business. I'm not like Brides or the Knot, but Brides might be one under me or one below me. Like companies that are huge and have the bandwidth and the money to spend, you know, endlessly on because they're content hubs, and that's not how I make my money or on my business. It's one of those things that you're like, this works. You just have to be consistent. So like creating content consistently, whether that looks like once a month, twice a month, 3 times a week, whatever you can be consistent with. I found with in my blogs or creating the content, that's where people have come. They've like, oh, I read a blog about this, or I was searching, how can I do this? And you popped up. And so I'm
Mm.
like, let's stick to, like, it's not
Yeah.
broke. Let's not, like, let's continue to do more of that. And the more and more I've continued to do that and brought in people that could write. So then I'm not, writing 100 things a week, that it's really served my business well. So I think that for anyone starting a business, how can you become that thought leader or that expert in that field? So like with you, a podcast, like anything and everything, Dylan, podcast from what is the right equipment, how long should they be? What are the scripts, the templates, what company should do it? Anything that I could ever think about when I would think, oh, I should start a podcast. You write on.
Mm. Yeah, that seems so simple, but it's so powerful. And question for you about this is when you're writing these blog posts, are you just looking to educate or are you looking to build trust and make sales or what is like your end goal with this?
So obviously we're in business, right? So you always want your content call to action always lead back to, and this is how we help our clients, or this is what
Yeah.
we do, or oh, you're thinking about this, get this freebie to get on our list. Because obviously then once you're on our list, we can sell to you. And so it's establishing authority, building trust, people getting to know, oh, she's the expert. Plus you got to think, how many times do you wake up and by the end of the day, you said you were going to do something you forgot? You have to stay in front of people. So even if my name comes up or they read something and they're like, oh, I'm going to fill that out by next week. Well, next week they forgot, or tonight they forgot, or when I put the kids to sleep, or 2 days from now I put it on my list. But if they keep seeing me, they're like, man, I just read something from here and the ad came up and she was on here and she did this. And I think my friend said she knows her. You're like, oh, I got to reach
Yeah.
out to her. Does that make sense? So I think it's a little bit of everything. The purpose when I first started was to add value. Like, hey, I've been in your shoes. I love to travel. I know here are the things you don't think about. Make sure you do this too. And then the same with weddings, or even as I consult travel advisors, it's like, hey, I started my business here. I know what it's like to X, Y, and Z. I know your cash flow problems. I know that, people, we're in our industry where they're not used to paying travel advisors because they're like, hey, you come in like AAA or those little brick and mortars and you go through the brochure and you pick your cruise. Those days are over. You know what I mean? Like, so it's you educating your ideal client on your industry, how you can serve them, any objections. So anything that someone could ever say is like, I wouldn't hire them because of this, I write on it. Like
Mm.
for my travel bitch, we just put an article about TravelBash compared to destinationweddings.com. Why would somebody choose destinationweddings.com versus TravelBash? Why would an advisor hire me as their consultant instead of hiring a business coach? So just think about anything and everything. If you're someone that your services are 10,000 and they're like, whoo, 10,000. Why don't you write on, the cost, the elephant in the room is our $10,000 price tag, right? But no one ever writes about that. But if you're transparent, you're like telling them, oh, did you know 10,000 is this, and this? And then you compare yourself to your competitors or just the industry as a whole. Now people trust you because they're like, why would they tell me this? Because if they really want to sell, they wouldn't, why would they want me to be introduced to their competitor versus them?
Mhm.
But then people are like, well, if they told me this much just in a blog, just imagine if I jump on a call with them or if I work with them.
Yeah.
They're going to serve me well. So that's what we try to do is serve people well. And it starts within our content because we need you to know who we are, what we stand for, how we can help, who we're not for, what are the other options around. You have to share that. People don't know that. You just assume they do, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So you
Yeah.
want them to come to you to share the story instead of them getting it from everywhere else.
Totally, because then you can totally control the narrative and help them make that decision. So that's so smart. I
Exactly.
love that. And I think that that would fit well into any industry, business coaches,
Yeah.
products, like any industry definitely could take a lot from what you just said. So I'm sure that another place that you've had to work around with creating blog posts is your SEO and figuring out what keywords
Yeah.
people are searching. Do you have any SEO tips for anyone looking to start a blog?
Good luck. No, because Google's always changing stuff. It's just like from Google Analytics, now they're on the G4, and I'm just like, it's always something. I believe that truly, sincerely, if you write great content that is helpful and adds value, Google is going to rank you higher. Because now here's the new thing, AI, right? Everybody's like, oh, we'll just use AI. Yes, AI should be a tool that helps you in your content and you can actually feed it information to speak like you and have that tone and that brand. But if you're if you're creating original content that serves your population, you're going to be rewarded. So I don't think about like, oh my gosh, I got to write keywords and then a blog. I sit down and write first. And then I might go back and edit and be like, okay, let me add this here. Or if
Mhm.
say in my blog there's not a keyword, I make sure the title tags or you know what I mean? Like there's certain headers that actually in your paragraphs that say the things, but I don't think when I write that I think of SEO in mind. I do it backwards of like, what all does someone need to know? And then before I upload, it's like, okay, let me just check this off in my checklist of, okay, let me see if this picture been, title with a tag. Let me set that title. And then even I'll do some research on the URL because you think that people like, oh, I'll just put, let me use an example. So let's just say you were looking at best wedding planners in Texas. Say I write a whole blog about I have a business in Texas and I won this award and I'm best of the best and I put my company name, let's just say my name's Courtnie Nichols, so CourtnieNichols.com, best of the best. Nobody's searching best of the best. They're searching best wedding planner in Texas. So
Yeah.
even if I have a great article full of content, full of helpful information to help you work with me or buy from me, no one's searching best of the best or wedding planner in Texas. They want to know best wedding planner in Texas. So when you're thinking of your content, what would you put like best podcast equipment out there? Like best destinations for families, best
Mhm.
budget travel, best luxury, private out. Like you got to think of like the consumer of Just when you use your phone, when you're looking for a plumber, what do you Google? You're not looking in the yellow pages anymore. So like when we're on, even if you're on Instagram or something, like how do you find what it is you need? That needs to be the URL so you automatically come up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so smart. That's such a good tip, and it makes a lot of sense just for Google to help you out. So I love that. That's really,
Yeah.
really great for anyone who's like either starting or maybe going back and like revisiting some old blog posts that may not perform very well. And they're like, okay, what can I do different? Let's add some SEO in there. Let's make sure the title is SEO optimized. So I love that because I feel like SEO now, like you said, it is changing, and I hear everyone talk about it like SEO optimize this, SEO optimize that. And I'm like, guys, do we really even know
And
what it
keep
really
up.
means?
And see, this is another thing I would tell people. Look at competitors. So like right now, if I want to put top travel agencies, whatever comes up, like, or I was looking at something the other day because I was talking to some of the girls on my content team of like brides.com put something out. Go and look at the article that
Yeah.
whatever the keyword you want to rank after, like go and look at what's in that space currently. Oh, they didn't put this. Can you add on to this? Or you see that, yeah, you have mostly everything they have, but maybe they went in depth in one paragraph. Can you go back to your content and lengthen it and or give some more, context around it, or throw in an opt-in or a freebie, or can you do an infographic? How can you make that piece of content even better, if that makes sense? So
Yeah.
like how you said about revisiting, can you look at switching out the photo? Can you do a quick little one-on-one interview with someone in your field that then you plop in there? Yeah, a bunch of things like that.
I love that. And that those are all great tips and I appreciate you sharing. Another thing that I saw on your website has how you call yourself a travel industry disruptor, which I think is so cool. I love that. We
Yes.
always need to find those things that make us stand out, like those taglines. So tell me more about that.
Yes. So I say I'm a travel rebel. And one is because for people who are not familiar with the travel and hospitality industry, we're old. And when I say we're old, not me, I'm young, I'm the millennial. But what I'm saying is, if you think about travel agents, that's what they were called, travel agents. Now, actually, our professional association, they call us travel advisors because we're advising.
Mhm.
Agents are like ticketing, like, oh, you need a hotel, you need a flight. They're
Yeah.
booking. But now you're doing more than booking. You're creating experiences, especially after COVID. Like you're sharing people like why you shouldn't go there. Is it safe? Like you're giving them forms, you're helpful information, all of that. So if you go back, circle about why I said all of this, they said that 2023, there was a travel industry report. 80% of advisors are women, 60% are older than 55 years old.
Wow.
So most people were in the industry when airlines used to pay commissions to agents. To me, I don't even know what that even looked like. Back when, remember when they used to print your boarding pass? Do people remember that? Like actual
Right.
printed boarding pass? Nobody prints boarding passes anymore. I
Yeah.
guess you can go to the kiosk and get it, but most of the time there's an app or you have it on your phone, right? So with me being a travel industry rebel, one, I came in the industry with no travel experience. I had a business degree, marketing, sport management, didn't know suppliers, hotel, any of that thing. So I'm like, automatically I stand out. Two, I'm younger. There's been a rush of younger agencies. So since COVID happened, 1/3 of travel agency owners retired. So that means a lot of the mom and pops, the succession planning is kind of like they pass the torch to the new reign. So I'm part of that new, it's like the old money and new money. I came in new, no travel industry experience. I'm under 40 years old. Three, I charge fees. Travel agents did not charge fees because they made commissions from the airlines. I think that stopped in the 80s. So we act more like our industry was acting like a real estate agent. They'll show you 100 homes, you buy one, they get their commission, which is great for real estate agents because real estate agents sell homes that are at least probably 100,000, right? How many travel agents are selling $100,000 trips? So if we were selling 100,000, 200, 300, 500,000, half a million dollar homes, I'll be fine with just taking the commission. But even your most wealthiest clients are not spending that money on trips. So in order to run a profitable, sustainable business model, you can't run off commission. So me as a travel industry disruptor, I said, hey guys, we got to start charging fees. You got to bring the level up because just think, where can you go in the world and get offered service and don't pay? No one says, hey girl, can you cut my hair? And I'll pay you if I like it. You don't go to Starbucks and say, can I try that caramel macchiato? And if it's good, I'll pay you this $5.
Mhm.
No, you buy it. And if you don't like it, you're like, ugh, I'm not getting this next time, right? So, and it's not just our industry, but I feel like when you're a small business owner, you're a creative, or you work in that field for yourself, people are kind of like, oh, well, we don't have to pay. Like, show us your itinerary. And like, if we like the itinerary, I don't believe in that, because it took me time to sit here and learn more about you, your likes, your preferences, your dislike. Go to my partners and say, hey, I have someone that's interested in X, Y, and Z. Curate this itinerary to your liking, for then you to be like, oh, I don't want to go there, or I don't like this, or maybe later, or you know what, we're not interested anymore. Well, how am I going to be compensated for my time?
Mhm.
So I was kind of one of those people that came in and said, yes, girl, I charge a fee, and it's not $100. You know, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that our industry is still kind of figuring out, like, should we charge? Do we charge? But just think COVID. A travel agent in my industry, a lot of travel industry professionals, they get paid on commission. That means if I book your trip today and you don't travel till tomorrow, I don't get paid until tomorrow. Meaning most travel advisors are planning trips for a year in advance. So look at your cash flow. How's that profitable if you're booking all these trips and not getting paid? You still have overhead, Squarespace hosting, email, marketing systems, if you run a podcast, if you have staff, if you have IC, all these things. And then just think, during COVID, none of those people traveled, right? So you didn't get paid at all, and then you did double the work, because then you had to either chase down a refund, rebook, all of this. So when I say travel industry disruptor, I'm switching the way that we do things from, hey, I'm coming in, no travel industry, I'm young, I'm charging fees. I'm really taking this industry, and it's not just about having fun and traveling the world, but also like, this is how you run a business. So that's where me coming in as Courtnie Nichols started consulting with travel advisors, and to be like, hey, I understand this is a fun career, but like, let's take this serious. Like, this isn't just a hobby. And in order for people to take it serious, just like they take anyone else, like, you have to have business acumen. You have to put in like your boundaries. You have to systems, workflows, all those things that we're just like, oh yeah, DM me and we'll send you to this hotel. We'll do that. Like, that's not how business operates, right? So that's
Right.
why I say I'm a travel industry disruptor, because I came in and I'm like, doing everything that is different from the way we've always done it. And also, our industry isn't as inclusive as I would like it to be. So, as a young Black female who is like, and I'm in the luxury space. So, the luxury space was usually only held for a certain type person and looked like a certain type person. So, to come in and say, yeah, I sell travel, but hold on, high end travel. And, there's a diverse audience that some of our travel brands are missing and not marketing to, that would love to drop tons of money with you. So that's where that title. It's like, I'm coming, let's shake things up, let's make it better, let's inform and educate people of like, hey, it's 2024 now. Use AI. Don't be scared of the AI is not going to take over what we do. Let's
Mhm.
use the new technology instead of you creating itineraries by hand. Use the platforms. Stop using spreadsheets. There's QuickBooks, Xero. You know what I mean? Like, it's a one place to start, but that's not where your end game should be. It's okay to grow your team. You don't have to know everything. Take things out of your brain, put it into a process. So they're like, mind blown. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's run a business.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, Courtney, that was amazing. And I can definitely see why you are starting to mentor other travel agencies, because they need to know exactly what you're sharing with them. And I love how you're not afraid to rewrite what's already been written, right? Like, that sounds cheesy, but like you were saying, everything is changing. Everything in the industry can change. People are retiring. So now it's this new generation. And I love that you're in the forefront of people who are actually making that change. And that way, years down the line, you've been doing this for years so far, but years down the line, it's going to be more of how you designed it to be. Even if, someone on the other side of the country is a travel agent and they don't work with you, they'll still see the content you're putting
Yeah.
out and be able to adapt your mindset, and then, maybe you can mentor them at one point. But that's so amazing, and I love how you're taking advantage of this change in the industry. Well, Courtney, I have loved this conversation, and is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I will leave people with this, and you just kind of touched on it. I think if you're going out there, you got to just go.
Mhm.
I'm always saying you could tiptoe or you could jump, but either way, you got to get in the water. So I'm also saying, like, you can have some fear and you can be scared, but do it anyways. Do it scared. Get a friend, get a mentor. And then I would say the biggest investment for anyone thinking about starting a business is your mindset. So whether that's getting a coach, reading, getting around a group of like minded people. I think that's important because in order for you to grow your business or even to really step into what you want to do as a CEO, it all starts with your mindset. You have to be there before your feet are there. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So like
Totally.
I would tell anyone that is, like I think I'm gonna try this entrepreneur thing out, that investing in their mindset will be the biggest return on investment. Even I can say for myself of just how I see things and how I see myself and how I want to grow, and be stretched. And because then when you become an entrepreneur, like you're like, man, whoa, all those things people told us in school. It's so different because you have an employee mindset. So you have
Mhm.
to get out of that and then you become the person that is making the decisions. And then from there, you have to empower others. You get to a point where now you're empowering others. You're not the doer anymore. And you're more the visionary and you're empowering others to make the decisions for the machine to work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And Courtney, the last question that I ask all of my guests to wrap up the conversation is to challenge the audience with three things based on what we talked about. So, what are the three next steps you would like all the listeners to take after listening to this episode?
The first step, sit down, and figure out what it is you really want to do. Truly deep down, if you didn't have to work tomorrow, even if you did want to, continue your job, but you wanted to start something new, what would that be, and what does that look like for you? I'm always saying like you have to create the life you want to live. It's not just going to come to you. So sit down and really think about what it is you want to be doing or could see yourself doing. And it doesn't have to be permanent or forever, the next 5 years, whatever, but come up with a game plan. And then two, figure out how you can make it happen. And when I say two, obviously you have the plan, but now there has to be some action behind it. So when I said, hey, does that mean you're going to take this amount of money and you say, hey, if I get to this amount of money and this hasn't happened, then, I guess I'm going back to corporate or, I'm sitting on that job. But then with that plan, now write a few steps on how you can make that come to fruition, if that makes sense. And then third, find someone else that is doing what you want to do or doing, being where you are. What is it like? You're going to find somebody who is doing what you're doing, or you're going to find someone who is where you want to be. And
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily have to be this awkward mentor mentee type of situation, but like there's no point in you reinvent the wheel. Tony Robbins, don't reinvent the wheel. Yeah, don't reinvent the wheels. Don't feel like you have to like to start a business. You don't have to like be some genius that is thinking out of the box. How many shoe brands are there? How many ketchups? How many, there's so many of the same thing. Don't reinvent the wheel, but like you have to learn and do your research and figure out what the market, what spin you can put on the market. Where's the gap, if that makes sense?
Absolutely.
I think that's three. Again,
Yeah,
it goes back to mindset too. What you're consuming, what you're listening to, what you're reading, who you're getting your information to. What does your friend circle look like? They always say, look at your five friends and you see that you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. What does
mhm,
that look like? What are those five people doing? You know, like if you want to be a business owner, hang around business owners. If you want to be a millionaire, hang around millionaires. And I know people are like, but Courtney, like, I can't get it. Like, how am I just going to hang with a millionaire? By studying them, by reading them, by listening to what they put out. They create content. So if you don't know one, study them. Be one. You know what I mean? Like
right.
you have to be that person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can create any reality that we want. So, really just
Yeah.
thinking back to that, that's amazing. So, Courtney, how can people connect with you?
I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. LinkedIn, Courtnie Nichols, and it's spelled with an N-I-E, not N-E-Y, guys. Thank my dad. So Courtnie Nichols, you can go to my website, CourtnieNichols.com. If you're interested in learning more about what I do outside of consulting, Obviously, I own a travel agency for those people who love to travel or plan any destination trips. It's travel-bash, B as in boy, A as in apple, S as in Sam, H as in horse.com. So CourtnieNichols.com or TravelBash.com, at TravelBash on Instagram. And again, hanging out on LinkedIn at Courtnie Nichols.
Perfect. I will put all of those in the show notes. And I really want to thank you for everything that you shared today and just being on the show and being so open with your advice and how you got to where you are. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.